Large Khanun gaining strength, and lots of other areas of interest to look at on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 30th. Well, still my voice isn't quite in it, but we are here with a tropical weather bulletin, and we have a borderline typhoon in the form of Khanun now. Will continue to strengthen over the next 24 hours and beyond, we expect. The 32nd storm of this year so far around the world. But more might be on the way. It's day 60 in the Atlantic, and we have a 50% area of interest, unchanged from yesterday's update, which will be swiveling around the open waters of the Atlantic. We're getting more confident that it won't affect any land areas, but it could become quite a strong storm later on down the line, at least as strong as Don possibly. Day 78 in the Eastern Pacific, 2 areas of interest we've still got on our charts, 10% further out to sea, but 60% close to the coast of Mexico, already feeling lots of precipitation and cloud cover over that region. Western Pacific getting busy, Doksuri fading off towards northern China, Khanun there in centre stage, and 2 areas of interest that we've got marked for later on, predominantly around mid to late next week coming up, and that could become 1 or 2 tropical cyclones and maybe even more down the line. No areas of interest though still in the Indian Ocean right now, but there is an area of convective tops that are causing probably some thunderstorms and heavy rainfall over eastern India. So let's take a look at the satellite imagery for the last 24 hours. Rain rate there, quite clear to see. Khanun's influence there, with a large area of red when it was really starting to develop earlier on in that 24-hour sequence. Also over India there, as mentioned, lots of rain at times. Well, here is Khanun, and it is looking pretty good, it has to be said. The best we can gather right now is wind estimates of 60 knots, 70 miles per hour, very close to typhoon strength, and we'll probably achieve it fairly soon. Estimated wind central pressure, into the low 980s. It's quite a large system, and its pressure is going to be a little bit lower than what you would expect. But excellent appearance there. Here's the Eastern Pacific already starting to get a mid-level circulation going there by the looks of things, and a decent looking system that's only just emerging off the coast of far eastern Mexico, Oaxaca, near the border with Guatemala, and then moving out towards the open waters eventually, and it should start to continue to move further away from land, but will still cause lots of rainfall over Mexico for the time being. There's a little look at the Atlantic area of interest right now, not looking so good, but a bit bursts of convection blowing up there on the northern side, but what's really lacking on that imagery by the looks of things is a good rotation, so it's got some way to go yet. Sea surface temperatures will provide plenty of energy for that Eastern Pacific system near the coast of Mexico, over 30 degrees Celsius for a large chunk, and those warm waters extending further out now than what they were during Calvin. In the Atlantic, very warm waters across the whole Gulf, as easily publicised in the last few weeks, near Cuba, over the Bahamas, and up the Gulf Stream as far as the Outer Banks, getting up towards 30 degrees Celsius, and out over the open waters also looking extremely good over a wide area. Western Pacific staying very warm as well. Khanun is currently over temperatures of around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius and slightly warmer to the northeast near the Northern Mariana Islands. Also a few spots around Japan really firing up in the last few days, and still off the coast of China and the Gulf of Tonkin, also very warm waters. The Bay of Bengal looking okay off the coast of India, just over 30 degrees Celsius there for a little area. And in the Arabian Sea actually quite cool, a little bit half and half there. Southwest Indian Ocean is generally cool, of course, as you'd expect into the off-season there. Australian region, a similar story, with hardly any of the Australian coastline now reaching 26 degrees, and quite a few of the Indonesian coastline too. And in Fiji, temperatures are just about reaching 26 on the northern side of those islands. A cold pool compared to average, just to the northeast of the Philippines towards Taiwan, which is where Doksuri was. East of Hawaii, also still that area below average, but the rest of the oceans there, looking above, Eastern Pacific especially there, 2 to 3 degrees above average. The Atlantic around 2 degrees above, except for the East Atlantic, which is pushing 3 degrees, possibly more. Of course, the subtropics, a different story. Extratropical zones, much warmer compared to average. Oceanic heat content looking very good, pardon me, over in the Western Caribbean and Central Caribbean, extending into the Gulf of Mexico. Western Pacific has tapered off a little bit after Doksuri, but there's still plenty left for Khanun, and that will continue through the Japanese islands and off the Eastern Pacific Mexican coastline there as well. Some decent values bubbling up. So GFS over the course of the next 5 days, a short range model, and you can see the movement of this Atlantic system. The south and southwestern part struggles to get those winds until much later on in that forecast. And then you can see right near to the end of that 5-day period, it shoots off towards the northeastwards, jet interaction possibly, and like we've done, we may well see another hurricane pop out of that very briefly as it scoots off towards the northeast. Eastern Pacific, looking out for this system that starts to form, and it does look pretty good as we get towards the longer part of the model run. Further towards the west, that other system really struggling, and maybe another system forming right towards the end of that 5-day period as it starts to move along the coast of Guatemala. But the main system, of course, is the one being depicted as that 60% chance that we're currently marking near the coast today. In the Western Pacific, Khanun, very large, shooting up towards the north and then turning through the Ryukyu Islands of Japan. A large typhoon, could get stronger in the East China Sea, and then potentially 2 storms forming in its wake there. One much towards the east of the Mariana Islands actually, that it ends up developing there on that GFS. And then that second one there that forms in Khanun's shadow and starts to move up towards the northeast. Khanun itself, of course, will be a significant threat to China by the looks of things, with well over 100 million in with a shot of reaching dangerous storm conditions. Rainfall wise, we're still looking at very high amounts of rainfall across the track of Khanun there, and possibly beyond its immediate track, with isolated maximums probably at sea over 30 inches there, nearly 800 millimeters, 12 inches along the coast near Shanghai, 300 millimeters, and not to do with the storm, but the monsoonal activity being enhanced there in the western Philippine Islands, increasing above 350 millimeters. Southern Japan could also get a few areas there too. Shikoku, 15 inches there, and in northern China as well. Not forgetting that, 18 inches up there as well. That's from Doksuri's remnants, which are still going. Moderate range, we can see multiple systems in the Eastern Pacific, 1 and 2. The first one, of course, is the one that we're currently looking at. A second one develops much later down the line. And a third one actually quickly develops off the coast of Mexico there. So the first system, eventually moving towards Hawaii, could still be a threat there much later on. Well, in the Western Pacific, it's open season. We get all kinds of activity going on here, potentially 7 different systems that are ongoing during the course of the next 10 days, including one that forms at a rather low latitude over there near the coast, near the not far from eastern Micronesia and the Marshall Islands. But look towards the north there, Khanun, and then another typhoon moving into Japan, the Korean Peninsula, China, all getting potentially barraged by these systems. There's 413's merch store, scan the barcode, you know what to do. Still waiting for Hone as well, of course. Into the Scilly range then, looking at the Eastern Pacific once again, these 2 systems continue. That second one dying out in the upper latitudes, and then another system entering the picture there. Will the wave train start properly now? It looks like it will, and that's a very strong hurricane appearing in the Scilly range there towards the end of that run, and gets very strong. So if that does happen, then that will be quite impressive. Doesn't really affect land. A little bit of tropical storm conditions along the coast of Mexico. And then we've got our initial system moving through just south of Hawaii, continuing towards the west. Will it make it all the way through to the Western Pacific? A question mark there. Of course, it needs to form in the first place before we get towards that question. Reminds us, of course, of what Calvin was up to, as a lot of its model runs were calling for something quite similar to that. The difference being with this one, it's a little bit further south on that forecast, so maybe it has a slightly better chance. Western Pacific, looking at these systems, that Typhoon landfall in Japan again, and more systems behind that. Japan getting infested with quite a few of them, and that lingering system there continues towards the northwest, eventually east of the Mariana Islands, meaning that we could be in for an extremely busy period over there in the Western Pacific and across the Pacific Ocean as a whole, if this GFS model run out to 16 days is to be believed. Well, I didn't expect that to be so tough on my voice. I don't really know what's going on, but it clearly is very bad. You can talk about that on our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13, for tropical weather and general weather and voice lambasting chat with over 3,500 weather watchers from around the world. On this day, a very powerful storm by the name of Wanda, which peaked on July 30th, 1956, with winds of at least 185 miles per hour, according to JTWC. The Chinese Meteorological Agency said that this storm had winds of 200 miles per hour, and there is an image from its impacts in China, where it made landfall, I think late on the 31st. The car there overturned on its roof. Back to today, and the next name on the Atlantic naming list, and I really hope you managed to get through all that with my voice and didn't put you off too much. The next name's Emily. Eastern Pacific, we might be about to see Dora. Central Pacific, next name Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name now is Lam. North Indian Ocean, it will be Tej. Oh dear. I don't know why it's come on so strong just now. I've been ill for quite a few days, but it's I'm fine, it's just the voice, it really isn't working. Southern Hemisphere regions here, I'm not going to go through it, but look out for the next tropical weather bulletin, hopefully at the same time tomorrow night.